Well, hello again, friends. This is something a bit of an impromptu stream following a question on the explain.org forums. I haven't really made much of a plan, apart from just going through and maybe explaining in a little more detail. Abbreviated cold and dark setup that I run through, but more importantly, having a look at how to pop a route into the FMC when using SimBrief, and as I said in the description, some of the considerations that you have to make around departures and arrivals. So we are sat on stand 918 at Perth, default explain 11 scenery, and I've done absolutely nothing apart from load the explain 172, wait for that to load, and then loaded up the 2K version of the Zibo 3.39 X37 aircraft, and it is completely cold and dark, and I have done nothing, and all we're going to do is just run through a quick setup and then show you what we can do to get the aeroplane set up based on an operational flight plan and OFP. So I'm going to pop night vision on because it's dark, and that just enables us to have a look, pop the battery on, pop the emergency exit lights on, and select some AC power. Because we've now got AC power on the aircraft, we pop the position of the strobe light to steady. I've got that mapped to a hardware switch on my Warthog HOTAS, and we should now pop the panel lights up. To Rick, who sometimes watches my streams, I did watch a little bit of your video, and I'll watch a little bit more after this, get back to you, but I noticed in his video that it didn't have any of the lights on, so you can't really see anything. So get the panel lights up. Bright is normally too bright, but I'm going to leave them quite bright for this tutorial. The dome light, in reality, once you're flying at night, you would have off or possibly dim. But in the sim, it's really difficult to see unless you have that on. So there's no issue with your eyes accommodating for the screen. So I do that. Hello, Rick. I did just mention you. So welcome back. So we've got AC power and the aeroplane has got the parking brake on and it's chocked, it's not going to move. So we pop the IRS to align. Some of you may have this set to short in the EFB settings, in the tablet settings. I have it set to real, and if we, this is, let's do that, okay. There we go. If you scroll that to heading status, and that'll give you the IRS alignment time. So in 6 minutes the IRSs will have aligned. And it's just important the aeroplane doesn't move. I'm going to run through what I would normally do. Your damper can go on, and now the IRSs are aligning. If they go off, that will automatically go off. The pumps you'll put on, so we don't forget them later. Electrical power, AC is on, gen's off, and the APU is off, not available. This is really for maintenance. It's only the cabin till an IFE that you need to check, but they're always left on. We'd pop the window heat on if we were going flying, and I'm going to do that anyway. Do the flow up or down, it doesn't matter as long as you go down each section. The hydraulic pumps go on. Diff pressure is 0, I don't know what the altitude is here, but that's what we'd set it to. Igniters go to right for the first, logo's on at night, it's Ryanair, we're in Australia, don't worry about it. Just good habits to get into. If you want to, you can do all the fire warning tests, everything else, but this will get you going. And we know those systems aren't going to fail, or at least if you've turned off failures, you do. So the first bit of information we need from the OFP for the overhead, you can do it later, but I prefer to do it in the initial scan. I've created a SimBrief OFP, the same route from Perth to Sydney, as Andrew on the forums was asking about. Just get, I mean, it works for anything, but just to make it more specific to his situation, I'll explain the variables so that you think about what exactly you need to tailor the information to. From SimBrief, you can export locally to your PC. It will produce a PDF. I will often print that PDF so I've got something to write on because I fly online, and it's a physical copy that then doesn't take up room on the screen. If you don't have a printer, you obviously don't have to. You could use a notepad to write things down, but it is useful. Now, I export that into a folder called charts. And I think this is all included in Avitab, in the Avitab guide. And I then delete any that are not the current one or the current sectors I'm going to do, just so it's easy to find. And this is how it outputs from SimBrief. ICAO for the departure, ICAO for the destination, PDF, the date, and that's it. So we open that up and this is exactly what would come out. This is in a Ryanair format. There are other formats available, Qantas, BA, Lido, but the information, while it will be in a different place, it will contain a lot of the same information. So the first page is the flight plan. That's what's been transmitted, or that's what would be transmitted if you send it over to VATSIM. You can pre-file using that. See, it's got remarks and the equipment, just as a real flight plan. Because we're flying sim, it doesn't really matter. But this is the page that I'm initially interested in. So because we want to set our cruise altitude, pressurization, and our landing altitude, the first one is flight level steps. If there were any step climbs, I mean, it's quite a long route, it's about 4 hours. As you can see, just from the times, departure and arrival, that's the off blocks, that's the airborne, that's the on blocks. Sorry, that's the landing time, and that's the on blocks time. And there's scheduled arrival time. So probably got a bit of a tailwind, and we're going to be 10 minutes early, allegedly. That may all change. Now I wrote these remarks in just all default options, auto packs, cargo, and zero fuel weight. So zero fuel weight packs and cargo is completely random generated by SimBrief if you want it, and that's what I've let it do. So it's given us a zero fuel weight there. But like I said, for the initial overhead, take this here. 350 is our cruise. If it was a step, you could consider leaving it and just setting the first one. If there was YPVH, then it would be 350, then another waypoint, and another height, 370 usually for a step climb. You would set the first one just in case you don't end up doing that climb for whatever reason. That's your initial cruise. Increase as you go. In this format, page 4 gives us our destination elevations and our alternate. I'm not sure what YSTW is, but anyway, that's the destination that SimBrief has picked, which is fine. It will take into account weather and the like. If that was where we were going, we would end up changing that. It just makes it smoother. The pressure gets dumped on arrival, but it will make the cabin descent smoother. In this case, it's 21 feet, so we round it down to 0 and it'll be fine. You could set it to 50 as well, it will also be fine. But that's that done. Moving up to the APU bleed going on, packs going to auto, and then when the APU starts, conditioned air will be coming in. Trim air can go on, and then you can set that as you like. You can set these as you like. In reality, they're roughly set to something like that, and that's the overhead setup done. Don't have to do anything on the MCP just yet. I've just got a few things to turn off because of how my controller works. So what we can do is get the panel lights on, and that ding means that the IRSs have aligned in the time it's taken me to talk. Get these panel lights on, and we can get the floodlight on so we can see everything. So a quick scan. That's set to an odd number to remind you that you're not cleared for your departure. When you do get clearance for your departure, you can set that to whatever that clearance altitude or flight level is. It's just a good habit to get into to remind yourself, or it matters on AT when you're using ATC online. If you're not, it's still worth confirming, checking runways in use. We've got real world weather, the flight plan, probably pretty accurate, but what SimBrief doesn't always do is get departures and things right. So this message can be cleared. The first step on the FMCs is to check the nav data. If you want to fly the airplane realistically, if you want to be able to use online ATC, if you want to, I mean really, you need the data. You need the data, you need the charts. The only way to, you can either get the charts, if you're using current charts and outdated nav data, you can get charts for free from the AIPs, but you really need the data as well. And this is the point at which you check the data that's on here. So it's AIRAC 2000, it's 20. I think this is when the data was generated. This is when it's valid too. So there's too many zeros in there. It's been a long day. I can't really figure that out. But it's effectively, it's AIRAC 2003. So it would have been generated on the 20th of Feb. I think it's that way around. 2020. 2020 Feb 20. AIRAC 2003 valid from 27th of Feb to March 25th, 2020. So it is current. And otherwise it will come up with an out of date data message, and so therefore that and the matching SimBrief AIRAC means you'll have up-to-date data both in the planning stage and loaded into X-Plane and the aircraft. Going through the FMC is then relatively straightforward. Position init, so position it as initialization, if I get the words out, is where we start, and we are going from Perth, in this case, YPPH, so we pop that in. This doesn't make a difference, you can put it in, I like to put it in to remind myself, so we're on stand 918, no lookup. And these boxes, these white boxes, indicate required information. If you do not complete these, then the FMC won't set up. So we take the GPS coordinates, haven't seen S for a while, pop that in. Could also get them from the gate and type it in. And because the IRS is now, you could do that before, and then when the IRS aligns it will power up the displays. Because they were already aligned, they have now powered up because I've been chatting for so long, so you won't normally see it that quickly. Onto the route page, you can see here, required information, and these are options, dashed lines. So YPPH, it knows we've already put in the origin, so it's already down here. And this scratch pad means anything typed in here you can then place using the line select keys here. So that's our origin. We know that we're off to YSSY. And that's our origin and destination put in. We could put in our call sign at this point, and then it will display on the progress prog page. So if I put in the Gulf Limit 99, you see that it comes up there. Company route. In reality, some airlines will use a repetitive flight plan route, and SimBrief and Zibo Mod can also do that. So I'm not going to show it because it then takes away how you actually enter the route, but on a long route it will save quite a lot of time, so you can do it. The SimBrief export format is listed somewhere on the flight plan. Go to where the route is, which is what we need to put in next anyway. You'll see the route ID here is given as PERSID01. SimBrief doesn't export in that format, it exports in ICAOs, so you would put in YPPH, which you can select like that, YSSY 01, and because I've exported it locally to my PC, into the right folder, which I can't remember where it is in X-Plane, popping it there will then load that route up. Like I said, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to show you how to pop the route in. So we've done the origin, we've done the destination. We go to the next page, and this is where we put the route legs in. And so they are all here. YPPH, YSSY, departure, destination. These are the predicted runways based on the conditions at the time. This is the predicted departure. This is the predicted arrival, predicted runway. Sometimes the conditions may change, or if you're using online ATC, they may change these arrivals depending on what they want to do. So these bits, this and this, are variable. The route you filed would be fixed, although it could actually be amended. However, you would likely find that out before, in reality, you got to the aircraft, although it could be unheard of that it would change. On this route page, you've got via and to. The to is for the waypoints, and the waypoints are either I think Alpha Delta. If I have a look at Alpha Delta, that might be an NDB. So I'm just looking on the map, see if I can find that. But normally 5 letter codes are waypoints, 3 letter codes are VORs. And in this case, surprisingly, I guess because Australia is relatively small, just trying to get it up on the map, but it looks like Adelaide is the Adelaide VOR, which is slightly unusual for codes, but then, like I say, Australia is relatively sparse. So that is a VOR. Normally in Europe I'd expect those to be 3 characters long. These are all waypoints. Airways are usually an identifier followed by numbers, and that's what these are. So yeah, there's your departure, runway 03, the standard instrument departure, the SID, which we'll look at the charts for these in a minute. Hecto 2 to Hecto, Yankee 135 is the airway towards York, Juliet 15 to the Adelaide VOR, Hotel 247 to Cullen, Yankee 59 to Rivet, and then the arrival Rivet 3 to Sydney, runway 16 right. Because these are airways, there are lots of waypoints along the way, but these are the key points. That's a key entry point. So let's have a look. This is the route that I've just generated, so it differs slightly from the one on the forums. So to pop that in, Hecto is our first waypoint, and if any of these routing via points said DCT, then that means direct. That you don't have to put that in, you just leave the via blank, and it will auto-populate that. So Hecto, that's what we put in. Direct is already listed there, so you don't need to do anything for direct. We think we're going to get the Hecto 2, which is going to change that, but we don't do that yet, we put the route in. So Yankee 135, we can put in to York. There was a discontinuity because there was required information there, and then as soon as you put that in, it will disappear. Juliet 15, discontinuity again, to the Adelaide VOR. Hotel 247 to Cullen. And then Yankee 59 to Bit. And that's the route. It really is as simple as that. Now, like I said, you can load it up and it would load that up exactly as we've put in. I think Rick asked how we'd get rid of it. We'll try that in a minute. What you have to do though is, before you do anything else, activate is required here. So we hit that, we execute to confirm it, and now the route will actually show up. So if we zoom out, that's as far as it goes. I know Australia is quite big. Go to the plan view. In the real aeroplane, this should work even without the IRSs aligned. However, in the sim, I think they have to be aligned. And that's it. That's the route done. That's everything. The departure and the arrivals are not included yet, but I'll talk about that in a moment. And if you look on the plan, to step along these waypoints in plan mode, which I've selected here, you can go to the legs page, and you'll see that this will include every single waypoint along the route. Let me just move it down so you can see a bit better. So Hecto, the next point is York, but actually there's all these waypoints in between, so we can step through these to see where we go, and this is following the airway all the way here to York. Adelaide you can just about see there, it's because we're zoomed out, is next, so we can reduce this down to zoom in. Panky doesn't appear on here, but it will appear on the rest of the flight plan. see all of these waypoints go along until there's the change, the intersection culling, and then a Q592 rivet, so there's only one waypoint along that route. And that's the route. See that there's no start, no departure, no arrival. So that's where you would end up having put the route in. Performance initialization, you can see all of these required boxes here. Again, where they are located on your OFP will depend on the format. We know what the zero fuel weight is, but what I haven't done is put payload in the aircraft. So if I line select that, it will select the current zero fuel weight, which is zero payload. So the operating empty weight of this aeroplane is 43.1 tons. I didn't really think about going into payload and performance tutorial, but you can see there 43.1 is the zero fuel weight, payload is 0. We want a zero fuel weight of 59.8, so to work out the payload we simply take 43.111 off of 59.8. We can just round it though, so 59.8 take away 43.1 gives us a total payload of 16.7. You can either put in the packs and then adjust the cargo as required, so don't know how many packs we've got, but we could say, let's say we've got 152 packs. I'll put all blokes in the aeroplane, and that gives us 13.2. We still need another 3.5 tons to get us back up, or another method. If you don't really care about how many pretend people you've got on board, it's not like I don't think they show up. You can simply put in 16.7 and the aeroplane will allocate it out. So it's filled it up and given us not a lot of cargo. Whatever, doesn't matter as long as you get the correct zero fuel weight, which when we come down here now, 59.8. This is estimated, you get it off the load sheet in reality. That's that bit of required information that we've put in. The aeroplane now needs to know a few things: cost index, fuel used, and cruise altitude. So here is the planned fuel. The nice thing about the layout for Ryanair is that it gives you the FMC info. As I've said before, I think it gives it the wrong way around. Human factors in me says swap those over because taxi, trip and taxi is what you want to put here. So the reserves is down here. So the trip and taxi, again, you can work that out from trip fuel here, taxi fuel here, which is an estimate, 20 minutes standard taxi fuel. Add those two together, gives you 9638. You can call that the FMC. If you put in 9.638, we'll round that down. You can round it up if you want, if you think you might have a little bit less, but it's just a planned amount of fuel. So if we just pop in 9.6, now we've only got 4 on board, so this should always be greater than this, otherwise you've got a problem. We haven't loaded any fuel. That doesn't change the zero fuel weight though, it just changes the gross weight. So you can see that at the moment, that plus that equals that. Reserves 3.1 is the point at which, when you put reserves in, that's the point at which it'll give you the message that says using reserve fuel. That's your key to say, I now need to divert to the alternate, either to land now off of the approach I'm on, or we need to go to the alternate, which I'm not sure where it is. But that's what you would do, because at that point you will then end up, if everything then still goes to plan, landing with your final reserve fuel, which is 30 minutes. And if you look like you're going to land with anything less than that, that is a maiden. That's an emergency situation. So with that in mind, that that's the cue to tell you to divert, it's sensible to always round this up, even when it's 0.4, so you round that up to 3.2, and then I like to round it up additionally again. It does nothing apart from trigger that message, so that then gives you an extra, at least 100 kilos, if not 200 kilos, which you can see from the fuel burn is an extra minute or two notice, just to give you early warning. So I'm going to put 3.3 in, and I mean this is going a bit over and above the route setup, but I might as well just run through the rest of the tutorial as soon as I'm here. Cost index. Now, depending on the airline, Ryanair always picks 6. Cost index of 30 is roughly common. The airline would give that to you. I mean, the SimBrief should generate something realistic, but you can either find it out online. The higher the cost index, the quicker you will get there and the more fuel you use. The lower the cost index, the more frugal the aeroplane will be. And if you Google 737 cost index, you can get some quite good information off the first few hits of that to just explain it a bit more. Essentially, if you want to get there quicker, you need a higher number. I think the valid ranges are, not sure if 0 is actually valid, it might break the FMC. So certainly 1 is a valid input, and I think in the 73 it goes up to 500. So very low cost index. And as you can see, it doesn't really do anything, but behind the scenes it's working at different speeds, climb profiles, etc. So this is the point at which, if you had step climbs, you put in the first one, because the top of climb wind will be the first point. So even if, certainly around London, sometimes you can get given a climb to flight level 140, 150, 240, and a final cruise of 35, you would put in the first one here. So 350 goes in. Cruise wind, again, if you're using real weather, it's quite important to include that, because otherwise you're not going to have accurate predicted fuel on arrival, etc. So the cruise wind, you can pop the top of climb wind in 291. 82. And one thing I didn't mention at the start is I'm not going to fly this route. This is literally just a quick tutorial on how to set the FMC up from cold and dark. ISA deviation +8, so 8 degrees. Depending on how you've got the aeroplane configured, these could be in thousands of pounds, thousands of kilos. Fahrenheit, that was Celsius as you saw. If you wanted to put it in, let's say you're in the States using in reality, when the Ryanair aircraft fly over to the States, they don't change the units, but the temperatures will be given in Fahrenheit. You would put in F, and you see it changes there. But it was 8 degrees +8, so I just put in 8, and the aeroplane knows that it is in metric. Transition altitude, you can check from the chart, but that should be correct. And you can see time error chart elements, don't really need to go into, just doing this will get it to work. Now all of that mandatory information has been filled in. There's a ding. That is an option. You can, don't always have to have that on, but the execute light has opened up. You have to execute that information because it's safety critical. That would be independently checked before being executed. There's only one of us, so we're going to do that. And the insufficient fuel message has come up because it has predicted that we will arrive with 0 fuel, which is correct. We haven't got enough fuel. So this is the point at which to refuel. That's done through the tablet, using the fuel. So you can either do this at the beginning, there's the block fuel, you can pop that in, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, you could round it up a little bit, and then you have to call the fuel truck. Even if it's set to instant, to fuel up instantly, you still have to press that and the airplane will fuel up instantly. So the airplane, you can see, is now refueling. M1 limit now. For this you need a takeoff performance calculator. You've got climb, takeoff and climb fixed D rates, and you have select temperatures as well. I'm not going to talk about those, but you can, if you leave it as this, you get full engine power. Low-cost carriers and airlines in general, if you've got a very long runway, you can reduce the power output of the engine down, reduce it further by telling it that the temperature outside is actually higher, so it will produce less thrust. It will limit itself, and I think each one of these is about 10%, might even be 20. Yeah, so each one of those is 10% D rate, approximately 10% loss of power, which means it just takes you longer to get down the runway, but that saves wear on the engines. And as I say, use a calculator to work that out. The Zibo calculator I don't think is modelled for takeoff just yet. So, takeoff, again, you need a calculator. The standard flap setting is flap 5. Flap 1 can be used for very long runways, or if you've got terrain considerations, because although it will take you longer to get off the ground, you will have a steeper initial climb angle, because you will be going faster. So let's pop flap 5 in, and CG you can get automatically populates. It calculates it. I'm not sure if that's true in reality. I think you have to input it in reality. And there's the trim setting, so you have to change that trim setting. Do it from here, from the pilot's view. Wind the trim down, and it will give you allowable range for takeoff. These speeds, the aeroplane has actually worked these out, but again, you use a calculator in reality, and ideally using the sim. Fill those in. That's the point at which you set 147. These figures will be inaccurate because we're increasing our gross weight as we go. So wait until you've done the fueling. Now comes the variable bit of the route. So we are at YPPH, and there will be a lot of charts here. You can see 17 pages for the airport, 23 arrival pages, 11 departures, 16 approach, and 2 reference. So noise abatement. And because I have Navigraph for the charts, and there's an iPad app, there's an Android app, you can use it in the browser as well. You will be able to manipulate these a lot better. So I just have this on screen to illustrate points. But if it's an airport you're not familiar with, you would start off at the airport briefing to have a read through. So there's the airport briefing. Now this is exactly the same as in reality, so on your sim flight probably not going to matter, but there can be some clues in here as to which runway. If you're flying online and there's no ATC, you may wish to have a look at flight radar, because that will give you the real conditions at the time. But the most important ones are the airport layout, parking stands. For some there can be a lot. We're not on Terminal 1, but this gives you a much more detailed view of where the parking stands are. So you could say that if we were on one of these stands, you know that we would then end up coming out over here somewhere. Gives you an idea. If you have like the Simlink installed, it will show you on some of the charts, they're geo-referenced, it will show you where you are in the sim. So that can help for situational awareness. So we're going to pretend that we're not online, and we can effectively do what we want. We do want to use a suitable runway that's into wind, so you need to know what the weather is. There's a couple of ways, and I'm just going to use this one. To get the wind, you want to land, take off into the wind. Sometimes you can take off a tailwind. Of course, that affects your performance. 090, 18 knots, gusting 28 knots, cav OK, temperature is 25, dew point of 13, QNH 1013, which is set there. So 090, having a look at the airport. 06 would be more into wind, and 03 means that we're going to have probably all the crosswind there. Pretty sure that was the runway that gave us, runway 03 from the flight plan. Now, if the airplane could take off, maybe unrealistic in reality, maybe due to noise abatement, but you could quite happily select that. If you're online, you'll be told the runway in use, so let's assume it's 03. Go to the departure page, select the runway, and that then filters out all of the inappropriate arrivals, departures. It also, the other way around, when you're doing arrivals, it will filter those out. So we are going to Hector, and there is only one Hector departure. So some waypoints may have multiple ways to get there. Sometimes that can be for propeller-driven aircraft, lighter aircraft, bigger category aircraft. So it's important to read the charts to see what is appropriate. And you can see that Hector 2 is actually available for all of the runways, but we are going 03, 06, So some airports, as I say, this could be a different identifier, this could be a different identifier, but at this airport, Hecto 2 Hecto can be used for multiple runways. It just depends on how the procedure designers have coded it. It's an RNAV departure. The Perth VOR is what is used for the MSAs here, minimum safe altitudes, but you don't want to descend below unless you are on a procedure departure or arrival. Yes, these are from Navigraph rigs, so I think you just link it with Avitab so it shows on here. Like I say, I use the iPad primarily, but this is just to do it when I'm looking, sort of illustrating the points online. So we can select Hecto 2, and that will then, when you go to the legs page, provide you here, it's not executed yet, which is why it's a dashed line. That will provide you with what it plans to put in. So these are not confirmed, they will go black background when they have been executed. So you want to step through this and check that it matches the chart. So runway 03 is obviously where we're starting. Now we've told it, you can see that before it just went all the way to Hecto there. Now you've got this route that is the departure. You can zoom in on that, see where the aeroplane is. Runway 03, ignore YPPH, and we're going to step through and check it. So Milda here, D5DME from Perth, 210 below. So where is that restriction? Here, so there's a note here, 1, note of 2. So do not overfly Milda PS airport traffic operates. So you've got to make sure that you turn before that waypoint because of this military traffic area here. And there you go. So that note there, runway 03, max 210 knots until Milda. And so that 210 below restriction has been put in. There is no altitude restriction. You can see that it's then, off we go to Olwyn. 079, there it is, to Amana. 078, Mickey, correct. Next page, and you can check it on here as well. 112, 111, I can be out by a little bit, to Lura, and then you can see that's the point at which they split to the different waypoints for the airways. Well, then off to Hecto 2, 119, Hecto, and that is back on our original plan. If you're happy with that, you can execute it, and now that is the route that is in the FMC. So we've programmed that departure, and so I think Andrew on the forums was trying to put these in and getting discontinuities because that would have got him to here, but then he'd have no waypoint. So you've got to do it this way round, and this is the variable information. So on a repetitive flight plan, you would have the waypoints and the airways fixed potentially, but the SIDS and stars are completely variable depending on the conditions, and so that's why they are separate. Because it's such a long flight, you could be quite tempted to happily leave the arrival until you got to closer to Sydney to find out exactly what was going on. So I'd certainly do that on VATSIM, because you're just going to be, the cruise is long enough that if you put it in now, you're probably going to have to change it anyway. The conditions may not change. It's based on the forecast, but you can do that throughout the rest of the flight. You can also do it on the ground here, and the process is exactly the same, except this time it's not a runway, it's approach types, and it's arrivals, so stars from the flight plan. You can see here that there are different stars, so same waypoint, different identifier, there will be something different about those. So let's have a look at some of the arrivals. Ours was the rivet, and there's only one of those, but I just want to look at these just to illustrate the point. And sometimes you have to spot the difference. And sometimes it may have the notes on here as to what it's for, you know, like props only, jets only. But I am going to imagine this is probably related to note on there to say why. Radar vectors to final. Sometimes it will say by ATC only. So you can see there that this one is just for runway 16 right. This one is for any of the runways. So that's the difference between those, and this one will tell you vectors. Now in the sim, if you don't have any ATC online, you would have to self-vector to create a custom waypoint for that. In reality, you'd probably get taken over here. That is a fly-over waypoint. You have to fly over it. That's what that circle means. Fly by, so you don't have to go over them. You can cut the corner, as it were. Have to fly over that. And so you could create a custom waypoint here. The airplane will go past it, back to it. A custom one, you could use the runway 10 DME, get you in, take the approach in. But that's a little bit more advanced. So we're going to have a look at the actual one that we've been given, and it's the Rivet 3 RNAV arrival. And the interesting, again, see this note here, expect radar vectors to final. This is only going to get you overhead the aerodrome. So it's very much like an old conventional approach for a procedural arrival. But that's the one that's been filed, that's the only one that's available. So a Rivet 3 you would select, and you can change it in flight, pop it on here as well. Same process as before, because I've executed it. And there's Rivet. Big M is the next point, which you want to check. 240 above 8,000, flight level 80. The next one, you see, that's at the bottom, that's at the top. That then says at or below 9,000, 9,000B, which is coded correctly. Some will say you could have a combination of those, so if you had 9,000 with a line above it, 8,000 below it, and then a line at the bottom, that would be above 8,000, below 9,000. You can't program that one in, but the procedure, if it contains it, can. So you can't do that manually, but the procedure could. And I think on arrival it was then runway 16 right. So again, to the approach chart, runway 16 right, so that's, let's try this one. That would certainly do us. You'd have to go overhead, outbound, and so you're going to have to get to that point. Now if we select it from the arrival, ILS 16 right, have a look at those legs. There's Rivet, Big M, Tammy, yep, Boogie, above 6,000, and then Tessat, which takes us overhead. If we step through, there's Tammy, there's Boogie, there's overhead, and all that's doing is going to take us straight out to this point, Erden, which is not that realistic really. So you would be given vectors in reality, but why don't we have a think about how we pop in a custom waypoint. So let's say we've been given that arrival, or you're flying it offline, execute that. You can see that that is really not a particularly ideal arrival. You're going to go over the top, round, and then have to do a 180 on top of yourself. So what we can do is there's Erden, initial approach fix, aircraft may be vectored. Now in reality you may actually get something like a shortcut from Tammy, or maybe from Boogie, so you could get rid of that. And let's say we wanted to do a point from Boogie to somewhere over here, and then effectively a base leg and then turn. We can do that quite easily by customizing, putting in a custom waypoint. So there's Erden 334. If we wanted, so we're going 334 outbound that way. The runway is 155. So it's 155 in that direction. If we wanted to point out here, then it's going to be 90 on top of that. 155 plus 90 is going to give us 245. If we get Erden in the scratch pad, and we get 2, 4, 5. It's going to get this point. It's going to go 255 for however far we tell it. And why don't we call it 5 miles /5? If we then pop that in, get a discontinuity, but I've now created a custom waypoint of Erden 01. It's just the order that I put them in. So that could give us something that's a little bit more conventional. So we're going to fly overhead, we're going to fly out, we're going to fly round and back in. So we could execute that. And that's not looking too bad now. Maybe it's a little bit tight. But actually, let's say we wanted to get rid of this point and just go straight from Boogie, then all you have to do is take your custom point here in the scratch pad, overwrite the one that you don't want, step forward and see that. You see now, even from here, if we execute it, that's what the route is going to do. So let's do that. And now we've got a little bit of a shortcut. The airplane would fly that arrival. So there's a little bit of customization that you might have to do if you don't have online ATC. In reality, you could get vectors. You might also have to do this in flight. You don't have to do it, but if you were given vectors from Boogie, you could create something similar, or at least get rid of, let's say we don't want our custom waypoint anymore, we just want to go straight to Erden, because that's where we're going to get vectored to. We could do something like that, and then at least the profile would update a little bit better and give us an idea of where we are vertically at arrival. Execute that. Again, that's not a very nice turn. The airplane, I think, would treat that as a flyover and then set up. But it gives you the idea. And that is our route and everything ready to go. It's then just a case of monitoring our progress. You can see that we should end up with 5.3 predicted on landing. That's the fuel we've got, and that is the aeroplane essentially ready to go from an FMC perspective. So when it comes to getting the aeroplane ready for everything else, before start checklist, all of that has only gone into the FMC CDU bit for the setup complete. You've still got to go through the rest of those checks. And that, as I've said, is pretty much it. Talked about left-hand side on the route pages, talked about the IRS, I've talked about using the scratch pad based on the information that we've got, and I've managed to talk for almost 50 minutes, which I think is actually probably a little bit mental, so sorry about that, but I hope certainly when it comes to the route pages that was useful. I didn't expect it to be that long, so Rick, it's good to see you again, thanks for watching. Andrew, who posed the question originally on the forums, I hope it helped you too. I'm probably not going to fly tonight, but I don't know. So thanks for watching. If it was useful, please subscribe, give us a like, feel free to ask any questions, and if you thought it was useful, maybe I'll do something in the future. Maybe I'll plan it out a bit better, so I can actually, get it down a bit, but I'm not going to do any editing. What I'm going to do is just record and hopefully give you a little bit of background and information so you can at least set it up and sort of considerations with online flying, realistic procedures. But just being able to enable you to get from A to B using what is a relatively complex airliner. So thanks very much for watching. As I said, please ask questions in the comments, I'll try and look at them, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks very much.